Chapter 372, Investigation. As the needles pierced the zombies' skulls, Zhao Lijai leaped into the air and swung her ice scythe horizontally, creating a massive water blade that flew at high speed toward the zombies. Crash! While she was killing the zombies, Jin Zuyin created a black flame barrier on the side to reduce the number of zombies rushing toward them. At the same time, he killed the zombies that slipped through his fiancée's attack and burned the corpses, cleaning up the battlefield. With him absorbing the energy from burning the zombies, he never ran out of energy. When his energy was almost overflowing, he would transfer it to his fiancée, replenishing her energy. 3 hours later, the large group of zombies had been reduced to piles of ashes that disappeared when the wind blew. With a wave of her hand, Zhao Lijai collected all the crystal cores on the ground. Checking her watch, she said, "Brother Yan, it's already 18:00. Should we continue or continue tomorrow?" Jin Zuyin thought for a moment and said, "Aitg, let's take a break and have dinner first before we continue. We might need several days to relocate the survivors. The sooner we go back, the better." Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "Okay." The two of them found a secluded place before they entered Zhao Lijai's space. Even if the chance of people coming to this place was low, it was better to be careful. While the two of them were taking a break, Wen Hao was reading a report in his office when he heard a knock on the door. Without raising his head, he said, "Come in." Not long after, the door opened and a soldier entered the room. After he closed the door, he walked over, gave him a salute and said, "Commander, there is a situation regarding the survivors." Hearing this, Wen Hao put down the report and finally raised his head. "What's wrong?" In these last 2 days, the survivors went against the guards several times. Most of the time, the reason for the riot was the lack of daily rations, the soldier reported. When Wen Hao heard this, he frowned and said, "Investigate what happened. With their family members working at the mill area, it's impossible for them to make trouble without any reason. There must be people instigating this matter from behind the scenes." Understood, the soldier nodded and left the office. When he was alone, Wen Hao tapped his fingers on his desk as he got lost in his thoughts. The survivors suddenly made trouble after the Phantom team arrived. If someone told him this matter had nothing to do with them, he wouldn't believe it. After he reached this conclusion, the corner of his lips lifted as he said, "Jin Zuyin, I want to see what plan you have." Under his order, the soldiers started investigating the cause of the unrest. At the same time, the Phantom team members had already changed their military clothes and wore old t-shirts, long pants and sneakers. In order to blend in with the survivors, they purposely used mud and sand to dirty their clothes and bodies. This time, they didn't go to the area where the women were staying, but sneaked into the mill area through the tunnel dug by Zhang Yuan and the Wen brothers. At this moment, except for Xiao Kai and Mo Junji who stayed behind, all the members were blending in with the workers. When the soldiers saw them, they didn't feel suspicious at all. After all, with the number of workers being more than 3,000 people, they couldn't remember everyone. Sitting between the workers, Zhang Yuan turned to the worker beside him and asked in a low voice, "Brother, how long have you been doing this?" Hearing this, the worker turned to look at him and asked, "Brother, are you new?" Zhang Yuan nodded and said, "I just came to this base yesterday. Today I was sent to this place. What is this place?" The moment he asked, the workers who sat near him all let out a sigh, and one of them said, "Brother, you must have your family members with you when you arrive at this base." Zhang Yuan pretended to be surprised and asked, "Brother, how did you know?" The man shook his head and said, "Actually, we are kept here not only to generate electricity, but also as hostages. Since we are held hostage here, our family members can't leave and can only work for the base." "Brother, besides the overcrowded rooms, I didn't see anything else in this base. What work are our family members doing?" Zhang Yuan asked again. The man glanced at the guards for a moment before he leaned closer and said, "Brother, let me tell you. Besides this place where we generate electricity, there are several areas used by the base to plant crops, store water, and do some experiments." "How did you know, brother?" Zhang Yuan asked curiously. "I came here alone, and I was already appointed to a team to go out to search for supplies. But because I saw what I shouldn't have seen, I was sent here," the man said. Zhang Yuan's eyes flashed with surprise when he heard his words and asked again, "Brother, what did you see?" "I saw them dragging a woman into the infirmary area. People said that that woman was infected and was taken away because she was turning into a zombie. I was curious and followed them. But do you know what I saw in the infirmary?" the man said. Due to his secretive tone, Everyone was looking at him with curiosity. After a moment of pause, he pointed at his head and added in a hushed tone, "I saw an old man opening that woman's head and putting a crystal into her brain." As soon as he said this, everyone took a sharp breath. Even Zhang Yuan was stunned by his words. While not everyone knew what that crystal was, Zhang Yuan was sure that the crystal must be a zombie crystal. But why did Wen Hao do this kind of human experiment? Did the zombie virus outbreak have something to do with him? While he was lost in thought, the rest of the Phantom team members were spreading news about the Linen City base. Since the workers had to take turns running on the mill, they had to repeat the same words several times. After several hours, they felt parched, and Feng Yun couldn't help but take out a bottle of water from his space when the guards weren't looking. The moment he took out the water bottle, the workers around him were surprised and stared at him with their eyes wide. Feng Yun drank the water before he stored it back in his place. When he was done, he smiled at them and asked, "Do you want some water too?" Hearing this, one of the workers asked, "Brother, where did you get the water?" "Oh, I'm a space-type ability user. I have water in my space," Feng Yun replied casually. After a moment of silence, another worker asked, "Brother, can you give me some water?" "Sure, but you have to make sure that the guards don't notice, or we will get into trouble." Feng Yun agreed readily and took out another bottle of water from his space. Seeing this, the worker's eyes lit up. While the man drank the water, several workers used their bodies to block the guards' gazes. When he was done, another worker finished the rest of the water. Reaching out, Feng Yun took the empty bottle and took out another bottle of water. Just like this, the workers who were resting shared the water. After they were done, Feng Yun took out a piece of ready-to-eat sausage from his space and ate it. This time, the workers were not as surprised as before, but they were still amazed at the amount of supplies he had. After a while, a young man asked, "Brother, do you have more food? My grandpa is old and he is sick. Can you give me some food?" When everyone heard this, they thought that Feng Yun would refuse. After all, food was different from water. They could get more water from water-type ability users, but food was limited. Unexpectedly, Feng Yun nodded and took out a pack of braised boiled eggs and handed it to the young man while saying, "You have to make sure to eat too." Afterward, he looked at everyone and said, "Actually, I'm a member of a mercenary team sent by the commander of the Linen City base. My team came to this base to relocate everyone to the Linen City base." "Why?" one of the workers asked. The Linen City base's commander received news about the fall of the capital. The moment he received the news, he sent my team over. It took us several days before we arrived. Now the capital is filled with zombies. This place is no longer suitable for living, Feng Yun replied without taking a pause. When everyone heard this, they were excited at first, but when they remembered their current situation, the light in their eyes dimmed. Noticing this, Feng Yun said, "Don't worry about your family. My team has prepared a plan to rescue everyone from this base. When the preparation is done, we will relocate your family first. Since you are under strict guard, we can only relocate you all at the last moment. Before that, everyone has to recover their energy, until we leave. I will be responsible for giving everyone water and food," he added. Initially, the workers didn't believe his words, but when they met his firm gaze, they finally showed some hesitation before one of them asked, "Brother, will the Linen City base accept everyone?" This time, Feng Yun nodded firmly. He showed them his ID card and said, "The situation in the Linen City base is different from this place. As long as you work hard, not to mention food or water, you can even buy a house. If you have specific skills such as being a doctor, engineer, researcher, or other occupations, the base will hire you. If you are registered as a permanent resident and work for the base as staff, you will receive a salary and supplies every month." The moment he said this, everyone was surprised. In this place, they worked like cows and horses, but the base only gave them half a bowl of thin porridge for every meal. Not to mention feeling full, the amount of porridge was not even enough to quench their thirst. So after hearing his words, the workers couldn't hide their excitement. The young man held Feng Yun's hand and asked, "Brother, will your team really take us away?" Feng Yun nodded and replied, "My team will make sure to take everyone to the Linen City base in a few days. For now, I need everyone's help to spread the word and share the supplies. In order to leave, we need energy." After hearing his words, the workers agreed readily. Now that he had finished the first step, the next step was to improve these survivors' body condition. They were exhausted and malnourished. Even if they were able to leave this base, in their current condition, it would be hard for them to reach Linen City. At midnight, the Phantom team members gathered together and reported their progress to Zhang Yuan. When they finished reporting, Zhang Yuan nodded and said, "Feng Yun, you and Qian Feng will stay here to provide the survivors with food and water. The rest will follow me to investigate the base." "Vice Captain, did you discover something unusual?" Qin Luzi asked. Zhang Yuan nodded and said, "I heard from a worker that Wen Hao is doing human experiments. From the worker's explanation, it seems that this base is trying to implant a zombie's crystal core into a human's brain." The moment the members heard Zhang Yuan's words, their eyes widened in shock. Even without them saying a word, they knew the severity of this matter. If Wen Hao was really doing that experiment, then he couldn't be left alive. Otherwise, the trouble he would bring in the future would be too great for humanity to face. "All right, we should go back first. If we are gone for too long, Wen Hao will be suspicious," Zhang Yuan said. Everyone nodded at his words and left through the tunnel they had dug. As for Feng Yun and Chen Qian Feng, the two of them joined the workers and disguised themselves. Early the next morning, Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan left the space after they finished their breakfast and gave Fu Guari some crystal cores, food and water. When they reappeared outside, the sun had not yet risen, but the sky had changed color. This area was cleaned up by them yesterday, so there were no zombies in sight. Riding on a motorbike, the two of them went to the parking area. Today, they planned to take the plane and return to the base. Today was the second day of their deal with Wen Hao. If they returned today, they would still have 5 days to relocate the survivors. Half an hour later, they arrived at the parking area. Since this area was used to park the planes, there were only several scattered zombies. After dealing with the zombies, Zhao Lijai stored everything into her space, including the staircase, machines, and tools used to do maintenance for the planes. When they were done, the two of them went to the landing area and took all the planes parked there. Afterward, they went to the fueling area and took away all the fuel tanks. At 9 o'clock in the morning, they finally finished their task and prepared to go back. But when they drove past the waiting area, they saw that the building was packed with zombies. Since these zombies didn't get the enhancement from the first rain, they were weak, and without consuming human flesh, they would get weaker as the days passed and eventually die from running out of energy. Although leaving them alone posed no threat, Jin Zuyan still said, "Aitg, wait for me. I will take care of the zombies." "Okay." Zhao Lijai waited outside while Jin Zuyan used his black flame to burn all the zombies inside the building. When he was done, he said, "Aitg, come and get the supplies." The two of them worked together flawlessly. One was burning the zombies and the other was collecting supplies. It took them 5 hours to clear the entire building. When they were done, they quickly left the airport. With the road no longer blocked by the zombies, it only took them 1.5 hours to go back to the base. When they arrived, it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Seeing them come back, the soldiers stationed in the monitoring room quickly opened the gate. After they underwent an inspection, one of the guards walked over and said excitedly, "Captain Jin, you are finally back." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan raised his eyebrows and asked, "Do you need anything?" The guard scratched his nose and replied, "Captain Jin, we heard about your deal with the commander. We are wondering if it's possible for us to follow you back." When he said this, both Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai were surprised. They exchanged glances for a moment before Zhao Lijai asked, "Comrade, why do you suddenly want to follow us back?" The soldier leaned closer to them and said in a low voice, "Comrade, to tell you the truth, we heard rumors about the Linen City base spreading among the survivors." "Oh, what rumors?" Zhao Lijai asked curiously. Instead of answering her, the soldier asked, "Comrade, is it true that we will receive a monthly salary and rations if we work as guards at the Linen City base?" Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded and replied, "It's indeed true. Not only the guards. Everyone who works for the base, whether they are ability users or commoners, will receive a monthly salary and rations. It's just that the amount of the salary and rations will depend on the value of their skills." After he heard this, the soldier asked again, "Comrade, I have a brother who worked as the human resource manager at one of the global group's companies before the apocalypse. If we go to the Linen City base, will the base hire him?" Zhao Lijai thought for a moment and said, "From what I know, the base is still hiring staff, and HR staff are included in the recruitment list. If there are still empty spots, the base will hire your brother. But even if your brother can't work as HR staff, he can still join the wall building project. Everyone who works as a worker will receive a crystal core and a meal daily if they are a temporary resident. If they are a permanent resident, they will receive 15 points and 2 meals a day." After she said this, she took out her ID card and point card from her space. She showed them to the soldier and explained, besides that, after you register as a permanent resident, you will receive an ID card and a point card. If you work for the base, your points will be added to your point card automatically every month. As for the rations, you need to go to the staff management building to get your share. If you don't work for the base, you can take a mission in the mission hall. When you finish your mission, you can receive your payment using this card too. The soldier's eyes lit up at her words and he asked, "Comrade, what is the usage of the points?" "You can use them to buy food, water and supplies, or to rent or buy a house," Zhao Lijai replied. After a moment of pause, Zhao Lijai added, "But you have to pay a registration fee if you want to join the Linen City base. If you don't have enough crystal cores or supplies to pay for the fee, you can borrow it from the base and return it in installments. But if you work as a mercenary and go out to find supplies, you have to hand over part of the supplies you find outside when you return to the base," she added. The soldier nodded when he heard her words. Handing part of the supplies to the base was understandable. After all, the base needed lots of supplies and crystal cores to support the commoners and the guards. Since the supplies were given back to the people, and not benefiting only a few, the soldier was willing to follow the rules. No matter from which side he saw it, the situation in the Linen City base seemed better than this place. When he got all the information he needed, he said, "Comrade, thank you for sharing this information with me. Captain Jin, when you go back, please allow me and my comrades to follow you." Since they were in need of soldiers and ability users to prepare for the second reign, Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "The Linen City base is built to protect everyone, so we will accept everyone, no matter if they are ability users or commoners. Young and old, strong and weak, everyone is welcome." After he received this promise, the soldier was eager to share the news with his comrades and said, "I will keep it in mind. Thank you, Captain Jin." Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai nodded at him and entered the base. In less than 2 hours, the news about the benefits given by the Linen City base spread among the soldiers. Since this news came directly from Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan, the soldiers believed it. Those with families and who strove for a better life all made up their minds to go to the Linen City base with the Phantom team. As for the survivors, everyone finally received the news of the relocation and received supplies from the Phantom team. With a huge difference in treatment between the capital base and the Linen City base, no one was willing to stay here anymore. The moment they received the news that the captain of the Phantom team had returned from the outside without even a scratch, they became more convinced that following him was the best decision. After all, only by following the strong could they survive in their current situation. As they walked toward Chen Kaiengxiao's room, Zhao Lijai noticed that the survivors were no longer as depressed as when they had first arrived. It had only been 2 days, but they looked more energetic, and their eyes were brighter. At the same time, Wen Hao received a report about their return from a soldier. After hearing the report, he asked, "Did they bring supplies back?" The soldier shook his head and replied, "Captain Jin and his fiancée didn't bring anything back." Wen Hao went silent for a moment before he said, "Keep an eye on them and report every move they make." The soldier gave him a salute and said, "Understood." When he was alone, Wen Hao tapped his fingers on the desk and said, "Go follow them and see what they are planning." When he said this, a man's voice was heard in the office. "Okay." Not long after, the door was opened and closed without anyone in sight. Half an hour later, inside one of the rooms where the survivors lived, Qin Luzi suddenly said, "Mother, someone is coming, we have to go now." Mother Qin was startled by her son's words and asked, "Luzi, did the commander send people to keep an eye on you and your team?" Qin Luzi nodded and said, "Mother, in the next few days, I might not be able to come visit you. You have to take care of yourself." "Don't worry about me, just be careful when doing things," Mother Qin reminded him. "I understand." After giving his mother some supplies, Qin Luzi quickly pulled Shen Jinj away and left the room. Not long after they left, the invisible man walked into the room and looked around. When he saw nothing suspicious, he left and went to check another room. Noticing this, Qin Luzi walked to a secluded area and used his walkie-talkie to inform his team members. "Everyone, Wen Hao sent someone with invisibility to tail us. Return to Brother Chen's room as soon as possible." The moment the members received this information, they quickly left the survivors' living area and returned to Chen Kaiengxiao's room. When they arrived, they saw that their captain and sister-in-law were already waiting for them. Seeing them coming, Jin Zuyan said, "How is the situation in the base?" After closing the door, they sat in a circle and reported all their findings from the past 2 days. When they finished with their reports, Jinzuyan said, "For now, your main focus is to relocate the survivors to the Linen City base. As for the human experiment, Aitg and I will investigate it." Hearing this, the members nodded and replied in unison, "Understood." Jinzuyan glanced at Mojunji and saw him in a daze, as if he were drowsy. If not for his clenched fists hidden under his sleeve, no one would have noticed his excitement at the mention of the human experiment. While the team was discussing the relocation plan, Mojunji's mind drifted back to the time he spent in the laboratory before managing to escape that place. Although not all the time he spent there was bad, most of the time, he had been forced to do things that went against his own will. Now that he had finally gained his freedom, he would make them pay for what they did to him. Clenching his fists tightly, he tried his best to control his excitement at the thought of the day when he could torture those people and make them beg for mercy as he once had. After they finished discussing their plan, Chin Luzi said, "Captain, there is an ability user with an invisibility-type ability who has been following us recently." Hearing this, Jinzuyan asked, "Is it the same person in Wen Hao's office?" Chin Luzi nodded and said nothing, waiting for his order. The reason why he was so sure that it was the same person was because the green dot had a hint of light brown. Unlike his captain and sister-in-law, who were blue dots, this person seemed to be tainted with the zombie virus. After all, the mixed color between green and red was brown. After a moment of silence, Jinzuyan finally said, "Find a way to lure him outside and capture him alive." Understood. To capture this invisible man, they needed Chin Luzi to locate him, Zhang Yuan to lure him out, and the Wen brothers to catch him. When they were done, Mojunji suddenly said, "Captain, I want to join Brother Chin to capture that person." Even though Jinzuyan didn't know what he was planning, with Chin Luzi and Zhang Yuan, he wouldn't be able to do anything to them. So he nodded and said, "Okay." Since they had been giving supplies to the survivors, Zhao Lijai said, "Brother Xirokai, take out the empty bottles. I will refill them for you. We also need to refill the supplies in your space." Hearing this, Xirokai nodded and took out all the empty bottles from his space. He handed a notebook to her and said, "Sister-in-law, this is the list of supplies we used in these past 2 days." Zhao Lijai read the list and nodded. With a wave of her hand, she took out the supplies from her space and filled half of the room. Xirokai took the supplies into his space and waited for her to fill up the water bottles. Looking at the fresh water, Shen Jinj finally asked, "Sister-in-law, can you give me some water to take a shower?" Since they arrived at this base, they hadn't taken any showers to avoid trouble. But after killing zombies and covering his body with dirt, he couldn't stand it any longer. He had endured the urge to peel off his skin due to his mysophobia, and he was reaching his limit. Knowing about his slight mysophobia, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "No problem." As soon as she said this, Xirokai quickly took out several big metal basins from his space and said, "Sister-in-law, we also want to take a bath." "Okay." Zhao Lijai filled up the basins and took out several bamboo partitions from her space. These partitions were collected from the shopping mall at Linen City before. Now, they finally came in handy. Since all of the members wanted to get a bath, she used the partitions to create a small area for herself and left the rest of the room for them. While she filled up the empty water bottles, the members undressed and took a bath in turns. When the water was too dirty to be used, they asked her to change the water. To save time, Zhao Lijai stored all the dirty water in her space and threw it onto the grassland before she filled the basins with clean water. To make sure that she didn't see what she shouldn't see, Jinzuyan stood guard outside the partitions. After they took a bath and changed into a set of clean clothes, everyone let out a satisfied sigh. Since there was no need to mingle with the survivors, they didn't have to worry about being found out by the guards when they visited their families. When Zhao Lijai finished filling the empty bottles, several hours had passed. Checking her watch, it was almost 7 o'clock in the evening. After Xirokai stored the empty basins in his space, the members cleaned up the room before they started preparing dinner. With their captain around, they didn't have any worries about attracting trouble. No matter how cunning or bad Wen Hao was, he was nothing compared to their captain. For today's dinner, they decided to have steamed rice, fish soup, and mapo tofu. Before she took out the fish, Zhao Lijai used her mind to kill the fish using her consciousness. When she took out 5 big, fat fish, the members couldn't help but salivate. "Sister-in-law, are these the fish you caught from Zhen Lake?" Xirokai asked. Zhao Lijai nodded and said, "Besides fish, We also caught shrimps, crabs, oysters, and a giant mutant octopus. Hearing this, the members were overjoyed. With these additional ingredients, they didn't have to worry about not having meat to eat. While they prepared the dishes, Lee Sikai was tasked with cooking the rice. At this moment, there were several rice cookers connected to a cable with several electric sockets. He was holding the end of the cable and used his energy to create electricity so they could use the rice cookers. Not long after, Zyro-Kai suddenly came over with another electric socket and asked, "Brother Lee, can you help me charge my phone?" When he heard this, Lee Sikai let out a sigh and said, "There is no connection. What use do you have for turning on your phone?" "Brother Lee, I downloaded lots of songs and novels on my phone. Even if I can't use it for making calls or browsing the internet, I can still use it to listen to songs or read books," Zyro-Kai replied matter-of-factly. Meeting his expectant gaze, Lee Sikai could only nod and say, "Okay." The moment he heard this, Zyro-Kai's eyes lit up and he said, "Thank you, Brother Lee." Holding onto another cable, Lee Sikai started charging Zyro-Kai's phone. Seeing this, the rest of the members came over one after another and joined the fun. In less than 5 minutes, he was holding a bunch of cables in both hands, serving as the team's free electricity generator. After dinner, the members went to sleep. Meanwhile, Chen Kaing-Xiao had just returned from the infirmary. When he saw that the Phantom team members were sleeping, he lightened his steps. Just after he placed his gun on the desk, Jin Zuyan opened his eyes and noticed the bloodstain on his clothes. Frowning, he asked, "Brother Chen, are you hurt?" Hearing his words, Chen Kaing-Xiao turned and replied, "It's not my blood but the soldiers who came back from the D area." D area. Chen Kaing-Xiao took a map and walked to him. He placed the map in front of him, pointed at a place and said, "This is our current location. The rest of the capital city is divided into several areas. The D area is the city center where the first hospital is located." Jin Zuyan checked the map for a while before he said, "Yesterday, my fiancé and I already cleared the zombies from this base to the airport. We plan to transport the survivors to the airport before we use planes to go to Linen City." "Brother Jin, even if we can send people to the airport, we don't know the situation in the Linen City airport," Chen Kaing-Xiao said. "I have contacted Zun Qi and asked him to clear the road. As for the zombies in the airport, my fiancé and I will go with the first batch and clear the zombies. The rest of the members will stay behind to protect the survivors just in case something happens," Jin Zuyan replied. Hearing this, Chen Kaing-Xiao asked, "Will it be enough with just the two of you? How about I send a group of soldiers to help you?" "No need," Jin Zuyan refused without hesitation. Bringing those soldiers would only delay them since they would have to keep an eye on their safety. With his Aitg skills, it was more than enough for the two of them to clear those weak zombies. Seeing that he was serious, Chen Kaing-Xiao didn't insist. After a moment of silence, Jin Zuyan asked, "By the way, since you know that the D area is dangerous, why did you send the soldiers there?" "It's the commander's order. He wanted the team to get more medicine, so he sent the best team we have to retrieve the supplies," Chen Kaing-Xiao said with a sigh. "Did they get the supplies?" Jin Zuyan asked again. Shaking his head, Chen Kaing-Xiao replied, "Out of 37 people who went on the mission, only 3 returned with heavy injuries." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan's eyes flashed with killing intent. This Wen Hao was worse than before. It seemed that he had to kill him before leaving this place. While he was thinking about how to kill Wen Hao, Zhao Lijai woke up and asked, "Brother Yan, what's wrong?" Seeing that his fiancée woke up, he asked, "Did I wake you up?" Zhao Lijai shook her head and said, "I woke up because I wanted to drink. Did something happen?" "Some soldiers were heavily injured after they returned from the outside. I planned to check on their condition," Jin Zuyan said. "I will go with you," Zhao Lijai said. Just after she said this, Yin Yusheng suddenly opened his eyes and chimed in, "Captain, I want to go too." Jin Zuyan glanced at him and said, "Okay." With Chen Kaing-Xiao leading them, the group reached the infirmary in half an hour. The moment they entered the infirmary, the doctors and nurses looked at them warily. Zhao Lijai frowned when she saw the big dark circles around their eyes and how pale their faces were. With their condition, it would be a miracle if they didn't make a mistake during treatment. After walking for a few minutes, they arrived at an isolation room. Inside the room, 3 people were lying on the bed with closed eyes. While their injuries had been bandaged and treated, their limbs were tied to the bed with iron shackles. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan frowned and asked, "With their condition, it's impossible for them to turn into zombies." Brother Jin, why are you so sure? Chen Kaingseo asked with surprise. Before they finish the mutation process, they will die due to blood loss first, Jin Zuyan replied and opened the door. After they entered the room, he turned to Yin Yusheng and said, Yusheng, try to see if you are able to heal them. Okay. Standing beside the bed, Yin Yusheng reached out his hand and channeled his energy. The next moment, his palm was covered with a soft green light. As he lowered his palm, the green light seeped into the patient's skin and slowly healed the wound. Inside his body, the small dot of green suddenly stirred as it felt the energy flow of its master. Feeling excited, the small dot swam through his veins toward his palm. The next moment, a small sunflower suddenly appeared on his palm. With its root buried under his palm, the little sunflower was hanging upside down. It raised its head and saw a large, ugly wound in front of it. As the rotten stench hit its face, the white little sunflower suddenly turned green. Feeling the faint tug at his palm, Yin Yusheng raised his hand and noticed the little sunflower. Before he could check what was going on with it, he saw it flapping its small leaves and vomiting some green goo. When he saw this, Yin Yusheng was stunned. He never knew that his ability power was also able to vomit like a pet, too. The moment the green goo touched the wound, it let out a sizzling sound, and soon after, the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone was surprised by this scene, especially Chen Kaingseo. Yin Yusheng was excited when he saw how powerful the little sunflower was. Even its vomit had better healing power than a healer. Moving his palm closer to himself, he praised it. Kui, you are amazing. Kui was a name given by him to the little sunflower. Although his naming sense was bad, it took a long time before he decided that a straightforward name was better. When it heard its master praise it, the listless sunflower suddenly perked up. While it was still not yet recovered from the nausea, it still showed a little dance to respond to its master's praise. Patting the little sunflower's head, Yin Yusheng asked, Kui, can you heal the others too? Hearing this, Kui nodded and absorbed some of its master's energy to recover itself. Noticing that it had recovered, Yin Yusheng walked toward the other injured soldiers and placed it near the rotten wound. A few seconds later, the little sunflower turned green and vomited some green goo again. After it finished healing the soldiers' wounds caused by the zombies, it buried itself into its master's body and went to sleep. Being forced to vomit 3 times was too much for its baby body to handle. Standing on the side, Zhao Lijai rubbed her chin as she got lost in her thoughts. In her previous life, this sunflower was classified as an S-class mutated plant. The danger level of an S-class mutated plant was equal to that of a level 7 ability user. With just one S-class mutated plant, it could destroy a small base within several hours. Now, seeing how it sold cuteness to Yin Yusheng and danced so happily from a little praise, she couldn't help but shake her head. Even though it was a good thing that this little sunflower wouldn't end up as one of the overlords of Linen City like in her previous life, she didn't know if having the sunflower living in her teammate's body was a good thing or a bad thing. While she was thinking about this, Jin Zuyan and Chen Kaingseo had already walked over to the injured soldiers to check their condition. Using his energy, Jin Zuyan checked them and realized that most of the zombie virus inside their bodies had been removed. With the small amount left in their bodies, they would survive. Zhai, can you give me some of your water? He asked. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai was pulled out of her thoughts. The moment she met her fiancé's gaze, she knew that he was asking for her pond water. Nodding, she created a water ball using the pond water in her space before taking it out. Seeing the water ball floating above her palm, Chen Kaingseo said, I thought sister-in-law is an ice-type ability user. Turns out, you are a water-type ability user. Zhao Lijai smiled but didn't explain anything about her skills. After getting the water, Jin Zuyan fed some to the soldiers before he used the pond water to clean the wounds and cut off the rotten areas. Afterward, he cleaned the wounds again with the pond water, applied medicine, and wrapped them with clean bandages. When he was done, he said, Brother Chen, as long as they wake up, they will be fine. Zhao Lijai took out several bottles of mixed pond water from her space, placed them on the nearby table, and said, Remember to feed them enough water and check their temperature. They might have a fever due to the injuries. Accepting the water, Chen Kaingseo said, I will convey the order to the nurses. As soon as he said this, Jin Zuyan said, Brother Chen, it's better to ask your people to guard them. Something is not right about those doctors and nurses. The moment he heard this, Chen Kaiengxiao's expression turned solemn and he asked, "Brother Jin, what's wrong? Did you notice anything?" "I'm not sure yet. After I investigate more about this matter and get the result, I will let you know," Jin Zuyan replied. Noticing the seriousness of the matter, Chen Kaiengxiao nodded and said, "I understand." After leaving the infirmary, the three of them didn't return to the room, but strolled around the area. At 10 o'clock in the evening, a group of guards dragged 3 unconscious women into the back area of the infirmary. After they entered, 2 guards stood at the entrance to stand guard. Hiding behind a pillar, Yin Yusheng said in a low voice, "Captain, those people really use the survivors for experiments." Hearing this, Jin Zuyan said, "Let's go back first and start relocating the people." "Captain, what about those women?" Yin Yusheng asked. "For now, we can't startle the snakes. Until we finish transferring the survivors, we can't touch this place," Jin Zuyan replied. Although he wanted to save those women, Yin Yusheng knew that what his captain said was right. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and followed his captain. Half an hour later, they returned to Chen Kaiengxiao's room and saw that the members had woken up. Seeing them come back, Zhang Yuan said, "Captain, everything is ready." Jin Zuyan nodded and said, "We will divide into 4 groups. 2 groups will stay behind to protect the survivors in case something happens. The 3rd group will be responsible for transporting the survivors from the base to the open field. The last group will be responsible for transporting them to the airport." After a moment of pause, he continued, "I have contacted Zun Qi, and his team will be waiting for us at Linan City's airport. Aitg and I will go with the last group and see if they need help clearing the zombies in the airport. After the first batch, we will return with Zun Qi's people and start relocating more people. For now, gather 900 survivors first. Prioritize the sick and those who need immediate treatment." "Understood," the members replied in unison. After they split into groups, Mo Junji said, "Captain, I want to join the team relocating the survivors." The moment he said this, Jin Zuyan glanced at him for a while before he nodded and said, "Okay." At midnight, the Phantom team started their secret operation. After they split into groups, the 1st and 2nd groups under Zhang Yuan's lead sneaked into the survivors' room. Zhang Yuan's team first got the family members of the Phantom team members and led them to the hidden tunnel. Since moving in a large group would attract the guards' attention, they only chose 30 people from each room to relocate first. With each member leading one group of survivors, they gathered 900 people in less than 3 hours. After everyone entered the hidden tunnel, when Mo returned the fans to their original position and guarded the entrance. While Zhang Yuan and Qin Luzi's team led the survivors toward the open field, the rest of the 1st and 2nd teams continued gathering survivors. At this moment, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai were already waiting for them at the open field. Just after they cleared the scattered zombies near the area, the survivors came out of the tunnel one after another. Yesterday, Zhao Lijai had already stored lots of buses used as shuttle buses at the airport. Each bus could accommodate 60 people sitting and 50 standing, totaling 110 people. She took out 9 buses from her space. When the survivors saw the buses, they quickly boarded in an orderly manner. 40 minutes later, the buses finally departed from the open field. With Qin Luzi's team leading the way, they managed to reach the airport in an hour. As the sun rose over the eastern horizon, the buses parked in the landing area. Seeing the empty field in front of them, the survivors looked at the Phantom team members in confusion. But before they could ask, Zhao Lijai took out a massive commercial plane that could accommodate more than 900 people. Then, she took out the stairs and climbed up to open the door. Standing at the entrance, she said, "Come up one by one." Without the zombies threatening their safety, the survivors were calm. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the massive plane finally took off from the capital's international airport, heading toward Linan City. After watching the plane take off, Qin Luzi said, "Let's go back. We still have a lot of things to do." The members nodded and they drove the buses back. When they passed the gas station, they refueled the buses and Zyro Kai took away the gasoline tanks. While the members continued escorting the survivors to the airport, Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai were sitting in the cockpit. With Jin Zuyan driving the plane, Zhao Lijai contacted Linan City's airport control tower. After trying several times, the communication finally connected. "Linan City's control tower, this is the Phantom team. Can you hear me?" she said. At the same time in Linan City Airport, Zun Qi smiled when he heard the familiar voice. Wearing the communication device, he replied, "This is Zun Qi. Comrade Zhao, the landing area is clear. You can land at any time. We will arrive in 90 minutes. Roger that." After the brief communication, Zhao Lijai went out of the cockpit and saw the survivors staring outside the windows with bright eyes. She walked to the nearest seats and gave them water mixed with pond water and a bowl of steamed rice with a grilled sausage, 2 pieces of omelette, and some pickled vegetables. The steamed rice had been cooked using the rice cookers in her space. She had installed lots of solar panels in her space to generate electricity. With enough power, she could cook 20 pots of rice at once. When the survivors saw the food, their eyes lit up. After she gave them the food, she said, "After eating, make sure to take a nap. When we arrive at Linen City, we might have to fight the zombies." Hearing this, some of the survivors turned pale. Noticing their fear, Zhao Lijai said, "Even though my team can protect you now, we can't protect you forever. If you want to survive, you have to pick up your courage and kill the zombies yourself." After saying this, she returned to the cockpit. Feeling hungry, she took out 2 bowls of chicken noodles for herself and her fiancé. While they were on their way, Zun Qi had already prepared several buses to pick up the survivors. Besides that, he also hired several mercenary teams to clear the airport area of zombies. As for the supplies the mercenary teams found, they would belong to them, and they only needed to pay 10% of the supplies to the base as tax. Besides that, they would receive 1,000 points for completing the mission. 1,000 points were equal to 500 crystal cores, which was not a small amount. With such a lucrative offer, many mercenary teams signed up for the mission. 80 minutes later, one of the soldiers finally said, "Commander, we detected an aircraft flying toward our direction." Hearing this, Zun Qi walked toward the glass wall and said, "It's them, prepare for landing." Following his words, 40 soldiers went to the landing area and waited for them. 30 soldiers would be responsible for escorting the survivors back to the Linen City base, while the rest would go to the capital with Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai. They were trained pilots and would be responsible for flying the planes later. 10 minutes later, the plane landed smoothly and taxied to the parking area. Not long after the plane came to a full stop. The doors opened and Zhao Lijai took out stairs from her space. Soon after, the survivors came down from the plane one after another. When they saw the soldiers waiting for them, they looked at them warily. Noticing their fear, the soldiers didn't move from their spots. Only after Jin Zuyan and Zhao Lijai walked toward them did Wang Qi step forward and give them a salute before saying, "Captain Jin, Comrade Zhao, my name is Wang Qi. I will be the one responsible for this mission." The 2 of them returned his salute, and Jin Zuyan said, "Comrade Wang, the total number of survivors in this batch is around 900 people. Most of them need immediate treatment." Hearing this, Wang Qi nodded and said, "Captain Jin, we have already prepared everything in the base." Then Wang Qi gestured toward the 10 soldiers and said, "These are the pilots handpicked by the commander. They will go to the capital with you and will be responsible for flying the planes." "Okay," Jin Zuyan nodded. While the survivors boarded the buses, Zhao Lijai filled the plane's fuel. Since Zun Qi already hired people to clear the zombies, they didn't stay to help. 40 minutes later, the plane took off and returned to the capital. When they arrived at the capital's international airport, a large group of survivors had been waiting for them. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai took out 4 more planes and filled their fuel. The 10 pilots boarded the planes and got ready to take off. Seeing them return, Qin Luzi pulled at a metal chain and walked toward them. When he stood a few steps away, he said, "Captain, we managed to catch this man." Zhao Lijai looked at the chain circling empty air, but because the chain was tying the invisible man, she could make out the shape of a man around 170 cm tall. With this ability, it would be troublesome if he escaped. Thinking about this, Zhao Lijai took out a can of paint from her space. After opening the lid, she used her energy to control the paint and started painting the invisible man. This way, they would be able to see him even if he stayed invisible. After painting the man, she said, "Brother, you have been captured. Why not show yourself?" The invisible man turned his head away and refused to talk. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan walked toward him and landed a punch on his liver. Duog. Cough. As soon as the punch landed, the invisible man's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, coughing up blood. While he curled up on the ground, Jin Zuyan stepped on one of his legs and said, "If you continue to be stubborn, you can't blame me for being ruthless." "Even if I'm dead, I won't betray my boss," the invisible man spat. Crack. Ack. As soon as he said this, Jin Zuyin exerted force and broke the man's leg. Then he stepped on the man's head and said, "The next part will be your head." The moment he heard this, the invisible man trembled with fear. He glanced at Jin Zuyin and saw the killing intent in his eyes. He knew that if he continued to be stubborn, this man would definitely crush his head. Finally feeling fear, he stammered, "Please spare my life, I will tell you everything." Without moving his foot from the man's head, Jin Zuyin asked, "Are you sent by the facility? What's Wen Hao's connection with them?" When he heard the questions, the man's eyes flashed with surprise. He stared at Jin Zuyin for a while before asking, "Who are you? How did you know about the facility?" Increasing the force on his foot, Jin Zuyin replied coldly, "Answer my questions." Feeling the pain, the man let out a scream and said, I will talk, I will talk." After Jin Zuyin lessened the pressure on his head, the man finally let out a sigh of relief and said, "I don't know what Commander Wen's connection is with the facility, but the facility did send me to assist him." "What experiment is he doing in the capital base?" Jin Zuyin asked. "I don't know, I only know that they took away survivors and planted crystal cores into their heads. So far, only one person survived the experiment, but he disappeared during a mission. My main mission is to find and bring him back," the man replied. Hearing this, Jin Zuyin and Zhao Lijai exchanged glances. After a moment of pause, Jin Zuyin asked again, "How can you find him?" "We put a locator inside his brain. As long as he is in the area, my radar will be able to detect him." "Where is the radar?" Jin Zuyin asked again. The man hesitated for a long time before finally saying, "It's implanted in my arm." The moment he said this, Qin Luzi flicked his fingers, and two wind blades slashed the man's arms. Zog! In less than a second, two long, deep wounds appeared on the man's arms. Squatting beside him, Qin Luzi used his dagger to dig into his flesh. During this time, the man let out shrill screams of pain. Standing not far from them, the survivors huddled together and shivered in fear. They had thought these people were good people. Unexpectedly, they were more ruthless than the base commander when dealing with the enemy. 5 minutes later, Qin Luzi finally found the chip. The chip was smaller than a pinky nail and transparent, making it harder to find. "Captain, this is the locator," he said, handing the chip to his captain. Jin Zuyin took the chip and said with a sneer, "The same trick as usual. It seems they haven't made any improvement even after so many years." After he said this, he used his black flame to turn the chip into ashes. Without glancing at the man, he flicked his fingers and burned him alive, reducing him to ashes. Seeing this, Zhao Lijai was taken aback. She knew that her fiancé was not a ruthless person, but she never expected him to be this ruthless. He didn't even grant the man a painless death. Being burned alive was torture, and the pain was no less than being eaten alive by zombies. While she thought so, she didn't feel that what he did was wrong. For him to do this man and the so-called facility must have done something terrible to him before. Based on their human experiments alone, they deserved to die a horrible death 1,000 times. After killing the man, Jin Zuyin turned to his fiancée and met her worried eyes. Seeing that there was only worry and heartache in her gaze, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't want to hide anything from her, but he was also afraid that she would despise him and leave him. Now, seeing her like this, he reached out to hold her hand and asked, "Aitg, did I scare you?" Hearing her fiancé's words, Zhao Lijai shook her head and asked him back, "Brother Yan, are you okay?" Squeezing her hand gently, he replied, "I'm fine." After the brief episode, another batch of survivors arrived with Zyro Kai. Jin Zuyin checked his watch and said, "We don't have much time, let's move." With his order, the members arranged for the survivors to board the planes and watched as the planes took off one after another. Zhao Lijai stored the buses in her space, and they returned to the capital base using motorbikes. When they arrived at the open field, they saw a large group of survivors waiting for them. Seeing this, Jin Zuyin parked his motorbike, and Zhao Lijai stored it in her space. They walked toward Zhang Yuan, and Jin Zuyin said, "Old Zhang, speed up the relocation. Zun Qi has already prepared everything at Linen." Although Zhang Yuan felt that something was wrong with his captain, he didn't ask and simply nodded. Understood. Since such a large movement would attract attention, Jin Zuyin and Zhao Lijai returned to the base using the hidden tunnel and filled 2 backpacks with supplies before going to find the guard. When they found him, it was already 8 o'clock in the morning. At this moment, the guards had just finished distributing porridge to the survivors and were having their meals near the hall. Jin Zuyin sat beside the guard, with Zhao Lijai sitting next to him. Glancing at the thin porridge, he asked, "Brother, will that be enough for you?" Hearing this, the guard let out a sigh and said, "Even if it's far from enough, it's better than nothing." After finishing his words, he gulped down the thin porridge and asked, "Captain Jin, you came to find me today, do you need something?" Handing the backpacks to the guard, Jin Zuyin said in a low voice, "My team is already relocating the survivors to Linen City. We will need you and your comrades to help cover our movement. When we are done, everyone who helps us will come with us to the Linen City base. During this period, my team will subsidize your meals. You and your comrades need to regain your strength and energy as soon as possible." When the guard heard this, he opened one of the backpacks and saw vacuum-sealed braised eggs, compressed biscuits, protein bars, and dried fruits. Stunned for a moment, the guard said, "Captain Jin, I'm afraid this amount is far from enough for me and my friends to recover our strength." "If you agree to cover my team's movement, we will give you more," Jin Zuyin replied. The guard exchanged glances with his friends before nodding. "I will inform them. Let's meet in the dark room area in 2 hours." "Okay." After finishing his words, Jin Zuyin left the area with his fiancée. The two of them went to the infirmary to check on the injured soldiers, but before they could enter, they saw a group of guards dragging 3 soldiers away. Seeing the traces of blood on the ground, Jin Zuyin narrowed his eyes. The two of them followed the guards for half an hour until they reached the area where the base discarded and burned its trash. When they saw the guards throw the soldiers onto the trash pile, Zhao Lijai waved her hand and took them into her space. Without noticing the sudden disappearance of the bodies, the guards left the area. Using her mind, Zhao Lijai checked the soldiers and noticed that although they were still breathing, they were on the brink of death. Holding her fiancé's hand, they entered the space and appeared in the grassland area. The moment they appeared inside, Zhao Lijai used her energy to check the soldiers' injuries. After a moment, she said, "Brother Yan, their internal organs have already rotted." Jin Zuyin turned their bodies and saw traces of stitching on the backs of their heads. Gritting his teeth, he said, "They were used as experimental subjects." "Can we save them?" Zhao Lijai asked. "I don't know, but we have to try," Jin Zuyin replied, starting to heal the soldier in the worst condition. While he treated them, Zhao Lijai fed them pond water. Holding the only female soldier's wrist, she checked her brain with her energy and noticed a silver-colored crystal core implanted in it. If she forcefully removed it, the woman would die from brain damage. If she didn't remove it, the zombie virus contained in the crystal would turn her into a zombie. Before she could decide what to do, the zombie virus in the soldiers' bodies suddenly turned into black mist and was absorbed by the space. Without the virus destroying their bodies from the inside, their chances of survival increased. Using their energy, the two of them repaired the soldiers' internal organs as much as they could and left the rest to fate. Before leaving the space, they fed the soldiers more pond water and fever medicine. Reappearing outside, Zhao Lijai kept a close eye on them in case they woke up. She couldn't risk exposing her space to them. When it was time for the meeting with the guards, the two of them went to the dark room area. When they arrived, they saw a large group of guards waiting for them. Judging by the number, it was about 2/3 of the total guards. Seeing them finally arrive, one of the guards walked over and said, "Captain Jin, you are finally here. These are my friends who are willing to join the Linen City base." Hearing his words, Zhao Lijai waved her hand and took out food and water, enough for them to last 5 days, from her space. "Share this with everyone first. We will give you more after we leave this place," she said with a smile. When the guards saw the supplies, their eyes lit up. After a brief moment of stunned silence, they quickly divided the supplies. When they were done, Jin Zuyin explained the plan to them. 10 minutes later, the guards nodded and the leader said, "Captain Jin, you can leave this matter to us. We will make sure the commander and his men don't find out." "Good, then I will leave it to you," Jin Zuyin replied. "No problem." With the help of the guards and Zun Chi's teams, the process of relocation had sped up several times. Since they needed lots of fuel for the planes, Zhao Lijai gave lots of fuel to Xiao Kai, and he was responsible for refueling the planes and buses. When she was done, she left with her fiancé to go to other areas to collect the supplies. Meanwhile, Mo Junji was on his way to the infirmary area. When he arrived, he hid behind the pillar and observed the situation. Half an hour later, he finally saw 3 ability users guarding a man in his 50s, leaving the infirmary area with a box in his hand. The moment he saw the old man, Mojunji raised his eyebrows. A smile appeared on his pale lips as he muttered softly, "Interesting, I never expected to see him in this place." After the group left, he walked out from behind the pillar and went in the direction the group was coming from. Unlike others who walked with sneaky behavior, he walked openly with his hands in his pockets. His pace was slow and relaxed. When he arrived at the secluded area with several guards guarding the entrance, he put on a mask and walked toward them. Seeing him coming, one of the guards stopped him and said, "This is a restricted area. You should leave." Mojunji glanced at the guard and flicked his fingers. The next moment, black mist seeped into the guard's skin. In less than 2 seconds, the guards suddenly rolled their eyes and fell to the ground with a thud. Without even glancing at them, he walked into the building as if it were his place. He read the research data and checked the experiment samples. Standing in the center of the laboratory, he rubbed his chin and said, "It seems that what the captain guessed was right." After he finished his words, he held his necklace, and in the blink of an eye, everything in the room disappeared instantly, leaving nothing but empty tables and several chairs. When he was done, he left the building. As he walked past the guards, he snapped his fingers, and the black mist buried inside the guards' bodies suddenly moved toward their brains and attacked the hippocampus, the part crucial to memory formation. After he altered the guards' memories, he walked back to the area where the survivors were living. 10 minutes later, the black mist inside the guards' bodies disappeared without a trace, and they soon woke up dazed. The guards looked at each other and one of them asked, "What's going on? Why did we both fall asleep?" Another guard tried to recall what was going on, but he couldn't think of anything at all. After a moment, he said, "Maybe we are too tired." While the guards were still confused about what was going on at Linen City base, when Hanley was busy arranging the survivors who had just arrived from the capital. After they underwent the inspection, the survivors were led to the registration counter. When they heard about the registration fee, most of the survivors hesitated, but after they knew that they could borrow the points from the base and pay them back in installments, everyone chose to register as a permanent resident. At the warehouse area, Zun Chi was checking the reports about the supplies they found at the border of Linen City and Yunshan City. He read the report for a while before he asked, "How's the situation in the granary area?" "We almost finished transporting the grains from the second granary. At the latest, tomorrow noon, we will go to the third granary," the soldier reported. Hearing this, Zun Chi nodded and said, "This time, bring more people with you and speed up the process. In the next few days, we will receive more survivors from the capital." When the soldier heard this, he was taken aback. He didn't expect that the base commander would agree to accept so many people at once. After a moment, he regained his composure and replied, "Understood." After he finished checking the supplies, Zun Chi took out his satellite phone from his pocket and dialed Jin Zuyan's number. He tried several times before the call was finally connected. A minute later, the call was picked up, and Jin Zuyan's voice came from the receiver. "Why did you call me?" Boom! Before Zun Chi could say a word, he heard an explosion coming from the phone. After a moment, he asked, "Jin Zuyan, are you in the middle of a battle?" "I'm busy right now. If you have anything important, just spit it out," Jin Zuyan replied while swinging his longsword and chopping off the surrounding zombies' heads in one smooth movement. The next moment, he heard Zun Chi say, "How many days will it take your team to relocate everyone from the capital?" "If you want to speed up the process, send more pilots. We have 10 more planes. This way we can finish in 4 to 5 days," Jin Zuyan replied. "I will send 20 pilots over." Before he hung up the phone, Jin Zuyan added, "By the way, my fiancé and I won't go back with my team. We plan to collect the supplies in the capital first. Also, we met Wen Hao in the capital base, and he is doing a human experiment." As soon as he said this, Zun Chi said, "I never expected that old bastard to still be alive." After a moment of pause, he added, "I will send my people to investigate this matter." "Okay," Jin Zuyan replied and hung up the call. Roar! The moment he heard the zombies roar, he turned to his fiancée and said, "Aitg, be careful. It's a high-level zombie." Zhao Lijai threw a water ball toward the zombies. When it flew midair, countless ice needles flew out from the water ball and killed a large group of zombies instantly. Roar! Following the roar, a tornado flew toward them at a fast speed. Seeing the incoming attack, Jin Zuyan raised his hand, and a black fireball flew toward the tornado. Boom! The moment the tornado and the fireball collided, it exploded instantly and sent waves after waves of wind spreading to the surroundings. The explosion force sent the zombies flying everywhere. After the explosion, the black flames suddenly engulfed the tornado, turning it into a giant black fire tornado. With the addition of the tornado, the destructive power of the attack increased by several times. Jin Zuyin used his energy to control the fire tornado to kill the zombies, while Zhao Lijai leaped toward the highest building's rooftop. Standing on top of the rooftop, a zombie with a hole in its stomach was staring at the black fire tornado. While it was still observing the situation below, Zhao Lijai suddenly appeared behind it. Holding her giant ice scythe, she narrowed her eyes and swung it horizontally, aiming at the zombie's neck. Feeling the sharp killing intent coming from behind it, the zombie created a tornado surrounding its body. Crack! The moment the ice scythe hit the wind barrier, the ice blade cracked. Before Zhao Lijai could react, the zombie landed a kick on her stomach. Duog crack! Noticing the danger, she raised her legs instinctively and blocked the kick. Although she was able to avoid injuring her vitals, she was still sent flying by the kick and crashed against the ground. At her current level, fighting a level 4 zombie head-on was not a wise decision, but she had already reached the limit and would be able to break through to the next level with more battles. Crack! Before she could get up from the ground, the zombie had already appeared in front of her. Seeing the sharp claws aiming at her head, Zhao Lijai rolled to the side, barely avoiding the attack. Using her hand, she pushed herself and leaped backward. The moment she landed on the ground, she raised her scythe to block the zombie's incoming attack. Clang! Cough! Due to the difference in power, she felt her blood churning and coughed out a mouthful of blood. With blood trickling down her lips, she leaned forward and used her right leg to kick the back of the zombie's head. Duog! Zra! The zombie was caught off guard by her unusual combat style and let out an angry roar as its body bent down. With her feet covered in ice needles, she was able to pierce the zombie's nape and inserted the ice needles into the zombie's body. The next moment, she pushed her left leg against the ground and stepped on the zombie's head with her right leg. Using the zombie's head as her footing, she leaped into midair. At the same time, she sent more energy into her dagger and repaired the crack in her ice scythe. With a flip, she turned her body and swung the scythe vertically at the zombie's back. Crack crash! Before the zombie could react, the giant ice scythe had already slashed the zombie from its head to its bottom. As Zhao Lijai landed on the ground, a line suddenly appeared on the zombie's body. The next moment, black blood spurted out of the rotten zombie before it fell to the ground with a thud. Standing near the zombie's half-body, she squatted down and searched for the crystal core. When she found the crystal core, she was surprised to see that there were 2 crystal cores inside. Beside the transparent level 3 crystal core, there was a level 1 wind-type crystal core. Looking at the crystal cores in her hand, Zhao Lijai thought for a moment before she stored them in her space. After she was done killing the zombie, she leaped down from the rooftop and joined her fiancé, clearing out the rest of the zombies in the area. When Jin Zuyin saw his fiancée, he noticed traces of blood on her lips. The moment he saw this, his eyes flashed with cold killing intent. With a wave of his hand, he created a fire barrier around them. While the zombies roared from the other side of the barrier, he leaned down and checked his fiancée's body. After a while, he held her wrist and used his energy to probe her condition. A moment later, he said, Aitg, take a rest in your space. I will take care of the rest. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai held his hand and replied, Brother Yan, it's just a small injury. I will be fine after absorbing some of your energy. As soon as she said this, Jin Zuyin nodded and sent his energy into her body. Feeling the hot energy flowing in her veins, Zhao Lijai used her energy to guide her fiancée's energy and started healing her internal injuries. 10 minutes later, she suddenly said, Brother Yan, I need to break through now. Can you help guard me? Jin Zuyin nodded and said, Let's go to your space first. Zhao Lijai held his hand, and the 2 of them disappeared from that place. The moment they appeared in the space, she sat down and closed her eyes. Seeing this, Jin Zuyin quickly moved several meters away and sat down. While he was guarding her, Zhao Lijai was feeling the burning pain as the energy tore her veins. As cold sweat dripped from her chin to the ground, she gritted her teeth and took a handful of blue-colored crystal cores from the warehouse area using her mind. The moment she held the crystal cores, she started absorbing the energy and used them to control the rampaging energy inside her body. While she was absorbing the energy, the mist covering the sky and the border of the space spun and turned into energy. As the energy flowed toward Zhao Lijai's direction, Fu Guari suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. Reaching out his hand, the corner of his lips lifted slightly. Closing his eyes, he started absorbing the energy into his body. Due to his action, when the energy flow entered Zhao Lijai's body, it was left with only 70%. Sitting not far from his fiancée, Jin Zuyan raised his head and saw the foggy sky start to clear up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Unlike before, the breakthrough process this time took Zhao Lijai several hours to complete. When she opened her eyes, she let out a long breath and felt her body become much lighter. Ignoring the black goo covering her body, she checked her energy pool and was stunned when she realized the amount of energy stored inside her core. Compared to ordinary ability users, her current energy pool should be equal to a level 4 ability user. When she was done, she heard her fiancé's voice coming from the house. Aitg, the water is ready. I will prepare the meal while you take a bath. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded and said, Brother Yan, I want egg porridge. Okay, Jin Zuyan replied with a smile. After Zhao Lijai washed off the black goo covering her entire body, she soaked in the bathtub while checking her space. There was no change in the house, but the other areas had a significant change. The cylindrical silo expanded and now could hold 110 tons of grains. The black soil expanded from 800 square meters to 3,200 square meters, with a yield of 60 kilograms per square meter. The grassland expanded to 80 hectares, while the pond's depth increased to 50 meters, with the energy contained equal to 15% of a crystal core. The oxygen level also increased severalfold, while the requirement needed to raise livestock decreased. With the current numbers, she didn't have to worry about running out of oxygen at all, even if she stayed in her space for the entire year. The sky limit increased from 300 meters to 600 meters high. As the fog cleared up, the space became brighter, but the crystal cores needed to sustain the space increased to 15 crystal cores daily. As for the requirement for leveling up, she had to break through to level 3 and use 5,000 crystal cores. She had no problem with the amount of crystal cores needed. The only problem was her level limitation. Even with her fiancé helping her by transferring his energy to her so she could continuously drain and recover her energy, it still took her a long time to break through. Now, with a larger energy pool, it would be harder for her to reach level 3. Since this was not something she could rush, Zhao Lijai decided to plant the black soil first. After they collected more supplies, she also obtained more seeds. With an area of 3,200 square meters, she planted 1,000 square meters with rice, 500 square meters with wheat, and 400 square meters with soybeans. Then she planted 500 square meters with various vegetables, seeds, and fruits, such as lettuce, lentils, carrots, cabbage, radish, eggplant, tomato, asparagus, broccoli, spinach, pepper, etc. The rest of the area was planted with corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, barley, and other grains. When she was done, the water had cooled. So she got out of the bathtub, wiped her body, and changed into clean clothes. Afterwards, she went to the dining room, where a table of food was ready. Seeing her coming, Jin Zuyan said, Aitg, I made your favorite grilled meat too. Eat while it's hot. Pulling a chair across from him, Zhao Lijai took her seat and said, Brother Yan, it looks delicious. Thank you. Reaching out to scratch her nose lightly, Jin Zuyan replied with a smile, as long as you like it. While the two of them were having a meal, Fu Guari entered a deep sleep after absorbing the energy. At this moment, the damage to his body caused by the mutation had recovered by 90%, and he slowly regained his memories as his body recovered. Zhao Lijai and Jin Zuyan stayed in her space until dawn before they left. The moment they reappeared outside, the surrounding zombies had been burned into ashes. Looking at the scattered crystal cores, she waved her hands and collected everything into her space. After she broke through to level 2 and upgraded her space, she could now collect items from a 150-meter radius. When she was done, they went to check the buildings in the area and collected all supplies before they returned to the airport. Seeing them coming, Xirokai quickly walked over and greeted them. Captain, sister-in-law, you are here. Coming down from the motorbike, Zhao Lijai asked, Xirokai, are the supplies and fuel enough? Xirokai nodded and replied, Sister-in-law, we have enough supplies but we need more fuel. Just after he finished his words, several planes landed one after another. Seeing this, Jin Zuyan said, Aitg, we need 10 more planes and more fuel. If possible, it's better to complete the relocation in 4 to 5 days. Hearing this, Zhao Lijai nodded and replied, "No problem." After she said this, she walked to the parking area and waved her hand. The next moment, a giant fuel tank appeared on the empty field. With another wave of her hand, 10 massive planes appeared in the area. The moment Xiaokai saw this, his jaw almost dropped to the floor. He pointed at the planes and asked curiously, "Sister-in-law, how could you take out such big planes without depleting your mental strength?" Zhao Lijai patted his shoulder and replied with a smile, "Brother, I'm already at level 2. As soon as he heard this, Xiaokai was so stunned that he could only look at her without saying a word. After a while, he finally recovered his composure and said, "Sister-in-law, congratulations." Hearing Xiaokai's words, Zhao Lijai smiled and took out more supplies. When she was done, Jin Zuyin said, "Xiaokai, when all the survivors have been relocated, all of you should follow them back." "Captain, are you not coming with us?" Xiaokai asked. "Aitg and I want to collect the supplies in this city first. Since there are no survivors left, it will be a waste not to take the supplies," Jin Zuyin replied. Hearing this, Xiaokai said, "Captain, then Brother Yun and I will go with you. With more people, we can get more supplies." "No need, the two of you still have to help Zun Qi collect supplies. We will be back when we are done," Jin Zuyin said. Since his captain had already made up his mind, Xiaokai could only nod and say, "Understood." After they were done with their business at the airport, Jin Zuyin and Zhao Lijai went to the area near the airport and continued to kill zombies and collect supplies. While the two of them were collecting supplies in the zombie-infested areas, the relocation project was in full swing. With a total of 15 planes, they managed to relocate all the survivors in 5 days. When Wen Hao returned with the group of soldiers and an old man in his 50s, he was stunned to find that his base looked like an abandoned base. Without wasting any time, he quickly opened the gate with his fingerprints and eyes. The moment the gate was opened, he stared at the darkness in front of him. Besides some emergency lamps, the rest of the lamps were off. At this moment, a foreboding feeling arose in his heart. Not long after, he saw his aide walking over in large strides and said, "What happened in these past few days? What's going on here?" Noticing his anger, the aide didn't dare to cover up anything and replied, "Commander, we were trapped by the Phantom team." "What do you mean by that?" Wen Hao asked. The aide took out a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to his commander while saying, "This is a letter left by Captain Jin." Wen Hao took the letter and read the content. After a moment, he tore the letter and said through gritted teeth, "Jin, Su Yan." Seeing how angry he was, the old man asked, "Commander Wen, what's wrong?" Ignoring his question, Wen Hao turned to his soldier and said, "Go check the laboratory." The soldier quickly left to check the laboratory while they went to the office. When he saw the empty rooms and hall, Wen Hao clenched his fists and asked his aide, "How did they relocate so many people without you noticing? What are you doing when I'm not around?" The aide didn't dare to meet his cold gaze and lowered his head. Just after they reached Wen Hao's office, the soldier returned and reported in panic, "See, Commander, it's bad. The laboratory is empty." The moment he said this, the old man grabbed the soldier's collar and asked, "What did you say? What do you mean by empty?" Before the soldier could reply, Wen Hao had already strode away. They didn't even have the heart to walk and ran toward the laboratory instead. When they arrived, they saw no one guarding the area and quickly entered the room. The moment the old man saw the empty room, he let out a scream and kicked the nearest chair. "Damn it, which bastard did this? Who dares to steal my data and specimens?" While the old man was trashing the chairs inside, Wen Hao had already left the area and went to his office. Before he could reach the elevator, the entire base suddenly turned dark. Even the emergency lamps turned off as the electricity was cut off. Without electricity, he couldn't use the elevator and therefore couldn't access the lower floors. Thinking about all his treasure locked in the office, he punched the wall and left a deep crack. Gritting his teeth, Wen Hao said, "Jin Zuyin, you bastard. When I see you again, I will make sure to peel off your skin and grind your bones." As he said this, his pupils turned slightly red before returning to normal after a while. The moment the soldiers saw him like this, no one dared to raise their heads. 10 minutes later, Wen Hao finally calmed down and said, "Pack up. We will leave in half an hour." The soldiers didn't dare to delay or ask about what to do with the rest of the survivors, and replied in unison, "Understood." Half an hour later, several helicopters left the capital base and flew toward the northern direction. When the survivors who refused to leave heard the sounds, they quickly rushed out but were only able to see them leaving. Seeing this, they were stunned and panicked. After a moment, one of them asked, "What should we do now? If I knew that Commander Wen was unreliable, I would have gone with those people." Hearing these words, another survivor replied, "What is the use of regretting now? I heard that those people are going to Linen City using airplanes. Maybe if we go now, we will still be able to catch up with them." As soon as the survivors heard this, they quickly packed their belongings and rushed to the airport. Unfortunately, when they arrived, the last plane had already landed at Linen City's airport. The moment the plane landed, Sun Qi's men were already waiting for them in the parking area. After the plane had stopped completely, they pushed the stairs, and soon after, the doors were opened. Seeing so many soldiers waiting for them, the survivors finally let out a sigh of relief. When everyone had come out of the plane, Wang He used a microphone and said, "Everyone, get into the buses, and we will escort you to the base." Hearing this, the survivors quickly went to the buses. As for the Phantom team, they took out their own vehicles and had already left first. The planes were too big for them to take away, so they could only leave them there. When the Phantom team arrived at Linen City base, they were stunned by what they saw. When they left, the fourth wall had just started building the foundation, but now the wall was already taking shape. Looking out the window, Yin Yusheng clicked his tongue and said, "Tusk, Tusk, Tusk. Captain Zun really knows how to manage the base. In just 18 days, he managed to build half of the wall." Hearing this, Zhang Yuan replied, "He is now the base commander. We shouldn't call him captain anymore. Also, I heard that he made a deal with the Yunshan City base's commander." They sent a group of engineers, workers, and ability users to help, with the addition of the survivors from the capital. "It would be strange if the wall progressed slowly," he added. When they heard this, Li Sikai asked, "Vice Captain, does Yunshan City also have a base?" Zhang Yuan nodded and replied, "From the information I got from Zun Qi, the base commander is also someone we know." Rubbing his chin, Zyro Kai said, "I wonder who it is. To be able to send so many people over, this person must have the trust of Yunshan City's people." Glancing at him, Zhang Yuan said, "That person is Feng Xiu." As soon as he said the name, everyone was stunned. They never expected that the one leading Yunshan City base would be the Red Falcon team's captain. Unlike other Special Forces teams, the Red Falcon team was mostly made up of women, and they took intelligence missions as spies to gather important information about enemies or assassination missions. Their physical strength might have been weaker compared to other teams, but their cunning was undoubtedly among the best. After a moment of silence, Zyro Kai said, "It's better for us to avoid Yunshan City base." Even though no one said a word, everyone nodded in agreement as they thought about the bad blood between their captain and the Red Falcon team's captain. When they reached the entrance of the third wall, they saw a long line of people waiting for their turn to undergo inspection and register their information. After parking their cars, the members came out one after another. The moment the guards saw them, one of them walked over and gave them a salute while saying, "Comrades, welcome back." The members returned his salute, and Zhang Yuan asked, "Comrade, we have been gone for almost 3 weeks. How is the situation at the base now?" The soldier smiled and replied, "Thanks to the survivors from the capital, we managed to speed up the base building project. Now there is an official market in the Third Ring area. We can sell or trade our items there." Hearing this, Zyro Kai was interested and asked, "Comrade, is there good stuff there?" "It actually depends on luck. Sometimes the items sold there are just trinkets to coax your partner. But yesterday, we heard that someone actually bought a good weapon there," the soldier replied after thinking for a moment. When the Wen brothers heard this, their eyes lit up instantly. Talking about weapons, weren't they the best weapon craftsmen in the current situation? After some brief conversations, the members finished their inspection and entered the base. While they were away, they wondered how the children and the members who had stayed at the base were doing. They drove to their team's residence and noticed how lively the base was now. 30 minutes later, they finally arrived at their residence and parked their cars. The moment they entered the house, they heard Rong Mo's angry voice, "Cousin, how could you lie to me like this?" Sitting on the couch, Rong Kinyu looked at his cousin calmly and replied, "Mo, I never lied to you. What happened to our family was a fact, and I never told you that I have nothing to do with Yunshan City base." Hearing this, Rong Mo clenched her fists and asked, "So, you think that not telling me is equal to not lying? Cousin, you are using me to reach your goal. Shouldn't you at least give me an explanation?" After a moment of silence, Rong Kinyu finally said, "Mo, it's my fault for keeping this matter from you, but I never used you to reach my goals. In this matter, I have a clear conscience. When Gu Shaoj saw that his girlfriend wanted to say more, he pulled her hands and gestured for her to calm down. While handing a glass of water to her, he said, "Cousin, does that mean that you will be leaving soon?" Rong Kinyu nodded and replied, "The Yunshan City base is in urgent need of supplies. I have to go back as soon as possible. What's more, my girlfriend is waiting for me to return." As soon as he said this, Rong Mo asked, "Cousin, when did you find a girlfriend?" Seeing that his cousin was no longer as angry as before, Rong Kinyu smiled and replied, "It has been 3 years now. When you visit Yunshan City base, I will introduce you to her." Rong Mo stared at her cousin for a moment before she said, "Okay." With this agreement, their argument came to an end, and it could be said that they had reconciled. Since the siblings were no longer arguing, the members finally entered the house and pretended as if they had heard nothing. Seeing them, Gu Shaoj smiled and said, "Everyone, you are back." Zhang Yuan nodded, took a seat across from him, and asked, "Brother Shaoj, did anything happen while we were not around?" Gu Shaoj shook his head and replied, "The children are still attending the military training. As for Sister Jiang, she is helping out in the clinic." After he said this, Rong Mo added, "Vice Captain, on the day you left, my cousin and I joined the base's mission team and went to clear out the zombies. But that day we met a strange zombie." Hearing Rong Mo's words, Mo Junji suddenly changed his mind about going for a bath and walked to the living room instead. He sat beside Zhang Yuan and asked, "Sister Rong, what kind of zombie did you meet?" Thinking that this matter was not a secret, Rong Mo replied, "I don't know what kind of zombie it was. At first it was a girl and she talked with me and my cousin." But before she finished her words, her stomach was torn open, and a zombie with tentacles suddenly came out of her body. From the information we got afterward, that zombie should have been a level 4 zombie. I'm not sure how it died because I was injured and fainted, she added. Mo Junji thought for a moment before he asked, "Besides the girl, was there another person with her?" "She carried a baby with her. After we came back from outside, I handed the baby to Commander Zun. That baby should still be staying in the clinic," Rong Kinyu said. After he said this, Mo Junji lowered his eyes and hid the surprise flashing within them. He had never thought that the theory of creating mutated DNA artificially was actually possible. Noticing his silence, Zhang Yuan asked, "Junji, do you know about this zombie?" Hearing his voice, Mo Junji regained his senses and replied, "I heard some people talking about creating mutated DNA artificially before, but I don't know if this zombie was created artificially or if it was just a coincidence." When they heard this, their expressions turned solemn. After a moment, Mo Junji stood up and said, "Vice Captain, I'm going to take a bath first." After he said this, he left the living room and went to the backyard, where the members were bathing together. With the Wen brothers building a higher wall, no one would be able to see what they were doing there. With the addition of partitions, they were able to create a private area for bathing. While they were taking a bath, Zairokai suddenly said, "Brothers, I collected some good stuff along the way when we were going to the capital. I plan to visit the market and see if I can sell it. Does anyone want to come with me?" "I will go with you," Feng Yun said. "My brother and I will go too," Wen Kai said. Zairokai nodded and asked, "How about you all?" "I want to sleep, don't wake me up if it's not mealtime," Mo Junji replied. Seeing his pale face, everyone was worried that he might suddenly collapse and die on the spot, so they urged him to rest more. As for Qin Luzi, he only gave him a glance but said nothing. While Mo Junji could fool everyone else, he couldn't fool him. With how bright his blue dot was, he might be able to live to 100 years old without a problem. After they were done bathing and changing into clean clothes, everyone had a meal together before dispersing to do their own things. While most of the members went out to check the situation of the base, Mo Junji went to his room and locked the door. Afterward, he pulled the curtains shut and blocked the window. After making sure that no one would be able to see what he was doing, he took out the research data he had taken from the capital base and started reading under a table lamp. The more he read, the deeper his frown became. After half an hour, he closed the folder and pinched the bridge of his nose. At first, he had thought that the capital base was successfully altering human DNA artificially. If this discovery was used for good purposes, it could save many people suffering from critical illnesses such as cancer. Unexpectedly, the mutation in the test subject's DNA was not due to artificial alteration, but because they had implanted a zombie's crystal core into the subject's brains. While they could alter the subject's DNA, the result was no different from creating a low-level zombie. The zombie virus contained in the crystal core was too domineering when integrated with the subject's blood. Even if the test subject was an ability user, the survival rate of this experiment was only 3%. Not to mention, they used ordinary people with weak immune systems due to malnutrition. Under these circumstances, the survival rate was no more than 0.01%. He stored all the data into his spatial necklace before taking out several bottles containing specimens. Picking up one of the bottles, he carefully observed the piece of rotten meat inside. After a while, he realized that it was part of a zombie's brain, or more specifically, the hippocampus, which controlled memory. He didn't know what that old man was trying to achieve with this experiment, but no matter what his purpose was, this was not something beneficial to humanity. It was a good thing he had taken everything away. At the very least, it would take that old man longer to achieve his goal. Reaching this conclusion, he stored everything in his spatial necklace before going to sleep. While he was sleeping, Zyro Kai, Feng Yun, and the Wen brothers had reached the market area. Compared to the temporary market they had visited before leaving the base, this market was similar to a traditional market before the apocalypse. At the entrance of the market, 2 guards checked visitors' identity cards first. The market was located along a long road with only 2 entrances, both guarded. After getting checked, they walked into the marketplace. As they walked, they realized that although it was simple, this marketplace was neat and clean. There were no storefronts, but there were many stalls along the roadside, made of wood and decorated nicely. For those who didn't have the financial power to buy carts or stalls, they simply used a piece of tarpaulin to cover the ground and displayed their goods on top of it. 10 minutes later, when Kai finally saw something good, he walked toward a stall, pointed at a set of hairdressing tools on display, and asked, "Comrade, how much for this set?" When Lin Fei saw that someone was finally interested in his goods, so he quickly put down the cold 2-grain steamed bun in his hand and said, "Comrade, it's selling for 50 points. Hearing this, Wen Kai nodded and said, "I will transfer the points to you." Seeing how straightforward he was, Lin Fei was delighted. He turned to Jian Zikin, who was reading a book beside him, and said, "Zikin, I'm going to the points machine. Watch our stall." Jian Zikin raised his head when he heard this. The moment Zyro Kai saw his face, he exclaimed in surprise, "Little brother, it's you." Lin Fei was someone who didn't pay much attention to people who had nothing to do with him. So, even though he had met the Phantom team members before, he didn't remember their faces. After all, with so many people around at that time, how could he remember everyone? So he looked at them for a moment before he asked, "You two know each other?" Jian Zikin nodded and said, "We met in the factory district. They saved my sister and me before." Hearing this, Lin Fei thought for a moment before slapping his thigh and saying, "So, the ones who saved us that time were your team?" After a moment of excitement, he added, "Since you like this, just take it. Brother, you don't have to pay for it." Holding the hairdressing set, Wen Kai scratched his head and replied, "Brother, how can I take advantage of you? I have points, I can pay for it." Lin Fei waved his hand and replied, "Brothers, you are my benefactors. How can I accept my benefactor's money? Just treat it as a thank you gift from me." Seeing how insistent he was, Wen Kai could only accept the gift. After a brief pause, he said, "My brother can create good weapons. How about we make one for you?" The moment he said this, the surrounding people suddenly turned in their direction. Even though they noticed, they didn't take it to heart. Not to mention that fighting in the base was prohibited, these people weren't strong enough to do anything to them. Before Lin Fei could refuse, Wen Kai squatted down. With his palm on the ground, he channeled his energy. In less than a minute, a lump of metal appeared on his palm. Wen Mo then took the watermelon-sized metal lump from his brother and divided it into 2 parts. Holding the metal pieces, he channeled his energy into them. In less than 2 seconds, the metal started changing shape. 1 minute later, 2 short swords with scabbards appeared in his hands. Looking at the short swords, he said, "You might need to wrap some cloth around the handle or use wood later." Since the metal created by Wen Kai had a low level of impurities, Wen Mo only needed to remove a small portion of it. This way, the amount of metal needed to create the short swords was much less than using other metals. He handed the short swords to Lin Fei and Jian Zikin while saying, "Try them and see if the weight and size are suitable." While Lin Fei was hesitating, Jian Zikin took one of the short swords and unsheathed it. The moment he pulled the blade from the scabbard, it glistened under the sunlight. Everyone sucked in a sharp breath at the sight. Giant Zikin made several attack movements to test the sword and said, "The weight and size are perfect." As soon as he said this, Feng Yun took out a metal bat from his space and said, "Try cutting this with the sword." When they heard this, everyone looked at him as if he were a fool. Just by looking at how thick the metal bat was, the thin blade should have chipped if it had collided with it. A high-level zombie has a body as strong as, if not stronger than metal. If the short sword couldn't even cut the metal bat, it would be useless against the zombies. While everyone was full of doubts, Giant Zikin nodded and swung the short sword down without hesitation. Clang! The moment the sword collided with the metal bat, it cut through it as if it were butter. Seeing the bat sliced cleanly in half, everyone's eyes widened in shock. Giant Zikin checked the blade and saw no damage at all. After a moment, a smile finally appeared on his face as he said, "This is a really good sword. Thank you, brother." After he said this, he rummaged through his backpack and took out a bag of seeds. He handed it to the Phantom team members and said, "Brother, these are seeds I found outside. I don't know if they can be planted, but you can give it a try." Seeing the seeds, Feng Yun was not polite at all. He accepted the bag of seeds and stored it in his space. When the captain and sister-in-law returned, he would hand the seeds to them. With Giant Zikin testing the short sword, everyone in the area now knew that there were 2 metal-type ability users who could create good weapons. Due to zombie sensitivity to sound, it was better to use cold weapons than hot weapons when fighting against them. Therefore, after they walked away from the stall, a group of people blocked their way before they had even walked 30 meters. Staring at the group in front of them, Zyro Kai said, "Brother, the road is wide. We can each take a side. There is no need to block our way." When the group heard his polite words, they exchanged meaningful glances. They had thought this group was hard to deal with, but looking at how they tried to avoid trouble, it seemed they weren't as strong as they appeared. Reaching this conclusion, the leader of the group said, "I heard your team can create good weapons. My team coincidentally needs some now. As long as you give us a weapon each, we will let you go."